being in the boardroom with Mitt Romney than they are being in the bunker with guys in Vietnam or being in the prisons. So my question is exactly how do we get these people to recognize their self-interest?
Survey that said that less than 50% now believes in the American dream. The American dream is a very powerful narrative that holds American society together. Okay? And so a lot of people, there is a sense of disbelief around that particular issue. I mean, it's always amazing to us that, to me, that, like we have to tell people something. Something is happening. Okay? And we've seen it here in Youngstown. Youngstown is a metaphor for America. Okay? Over the last 30 years. Youngstown's story is America's story. And we've seen the results of 30 years of decline of labor unions. We've seen 30 years of this sort of inept urbanization, or not urbanization, de-urbanization, if you would. Or to use Stoughton's word, denigrification. All right? Of what's happened here. And so I think there is and what's happening I think in Youngstown is also happening in Austintown, Boardman. And you can see it. It's, people are, urban studies people are seeing it all over the place. So I think that there is something sort of going on here. And I think it's at this point is we really have to sort of continue to sort of articulate that. Because times of crisis, as somebody said, are times of rapid advancement. And I think that discussion becomes very important. It's amazing to me, it started I think January of last year, or December of last year, January, when the labor unions asked me to participate in a statewide call with a whole bunch of reporters throughout the state. And two labor people got in there and they talked about the importance of the dangers of Senate Bill 5 and everything else. And the reporters got to me and I said, "This is great news." And the reporter said, "How can you say that? You heard what he said." I said, "This is a teachable moment. We can talk about the people who take care of everybody else and make work possible." And so when Bill says and talks about the Voter Suppression Act or the right to work laws, that they're trying to initiate, great. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the role of labor unions. Let's talk about democracy. But I think, the labor unions especially, Chris and I probably agree, I should say that I'm on the board of MPOC, and, I have a certain organizing element to my life, that we got to not be fearful of this discussion. And we are. I kept thinking when Bill was reminiscing about faculty unionism. There are a bunch of church mouses. They don't want to talk about what's happening in terms of their lives and their working conditions. And they're middle class people. But we know what's happening to our field, with increasing numbers of part-time, limited service people, all the other things that are going on. And that Senate Bill 5 gave them some energy to talk about these things. And I think that's one of the things we really have to push. The outcome, I don't know. And we can, I'm not a historian, but I know about unintended consequences. Okay? And the prison story is a powerful metaphor for those of us who grew up in the 60s and 70s and understand about overcrowding the prisons and how we were going to take care of that. We certainly did. And how did we solve it? We built a hell of a lot more prisons. Okay, that's an unintended consequence of that movement, and we have to sort of think through, and I think that's what Tom was trying to get at, is that we got to really think what's happening and think it through, but at the same time we got to have that discussion that's ongoing, but we might not know the outcome of it.
John Sabatini, who asked the question, Pat Rosenthal. Something we should keep our eye on is the question, who are the 1% in the Mahoning Valley? somehow it's a lot easier to talk about Wall Street than it is to talk about who represents Wall Street here in our own immediate lives. It's a good thing that not only did Occupy Youngstown do its thing in the Federal Plaza, and you all know that area when the tent and the burn barrel were outlawed, they said we were blocking the sidewalk on this great big public plaza. Not only that, but up until November 10th and 11th, every department of the city that had come in contact with Occupy Youngstown was working with us. Or we'd just like you to move the burn barrel 5.5 feet in this direction so that the fumes didn't do this or that. A city council person brought the burn barrel down to the plaza. The chief of police told Bob Hagan that he had no objection to a tent being there indefinitely. Somebody made a phone call to the mayor. Maybe the fact that the Department of Commerce is located in the skyscraper next to the Federal Plaza has something to do with it. We're trying to find out. But if any of you have a cousin or an uncle who picks up trash outside the boardroom of the Chamber of Commerce, it's an important question because this whole Youngstown is United bubblegum conceals what's going on in our community in the same way that patriotism is misused to justify drones and Guantanamo. So here's a collective task for all of us, because I think there are many different ways of locating the answer to this question. Who is running things in this town? Where did this idea of a shrinking community really come from? Who is going to decide what happens in the empty places that are created when the buildings are torn down? All of these questions about who really runs things here, I think we need to direct ourselves to answer.